Good evening. Look out the window. Do you see the lights in the neighboring houses? Each of them is a signal. There is life here. But what happens when the most important light goes out? The town of Willow Creek had its own unspoken beacon. It was an old house on the highest hill. Mrs. Abernathy lived there. No one really remembered how old she was, and few people spoke to her. But everyone knew one thing. Every Christmas, exactly at twilight, a huge golden lamp would light up in her large bay window. For the residents of the town, it was a signal. It meant the holiday has begun. It was a constant, like the sunrise. Drivers navigated by this light. Children made wishes upon it. We got used to taking the light for granted. Until one day, it disappeared. It was Christmas Eve. The town was preparing for the celebration, but tension hung in the air. People on the streets kept glancing up at the hill. The hill was plunged into darkness. 5 o'clock in the evening, no light. 6 o'clock, darkness. 7 o'clock. Down in the town, a quiet panic began. Not the kind of panic where people scream, but that anxiety when the familiar order of things collapses. Maybe she left, the baker asked the mailman. She hasn't left the house in 5 years, he replied gloomily. She has bad legs. Maybe the bulb just burned out, suggested a young mother with a stroller. But what if... No one dared to finish the sentence. In that darkness, the residents of Willow Creek suddenly realized a terrible thing. They had used her light for years, warmed their gaze upon it, but no one, absolutely no one, knew her phone number. No one ever visited her just because old Sheriff Miller was the first to break. He silently started his patrol car and drove toward the hill. Seeing the flashing lights, the baker's van followed. Then the local school teacher stepped out of his house. He just walked, carrying a flashlight. Neighbors followed him. It was a strange procession. People who had argued for years over parking spots and fence heights now walked shoulder to shoulder up the snowy road. They were led not by curiosity. They were led by shame and the fear of losing their beacon. The wind knocked them off their feet, but the stream of people only grew. It seemed the whole town decided to climb to where it was dark. The sheriff kicked in the door. As no one answered his knock, inside the house was as cold as a crypt. "Mrs. Abernathy," he shouted. Silence. The flashlight beam caught a figure in the armchair by the window. She was there, alive. A small, fragile old lady wrapped in 3 blankets. She was shivering. Next to her on the table stood that famous golden lamp. "I'm sorry," she whispered barely audibly as people filled the room. "Forgive me." "What happened, Mary?" The sheriff knelt before her, rubbing her icy hands. "The fuse blew," she wept. "This morning. I tried to get to the breaker box, but I fell. I couldn't get up. I was so afraid. Not of the dark. I was afraid that you would look up and think I had abandoned you. That there would be no Christmas." Silence hung in the room. People looked at this woman who, freezing in a dark house, worried not for herself, but that she had let them down. The baker, a burly man, had tears in his eyes. "Not on my watch," said Steve, the electrician, loudly, squeezing through the crowd. "Give me 5 minutes." Someone ran for blankets. Someone brought a thermos of hot soup they had been carrying. Someone started stoking the fireplace. 10 minutes later, the light flickered and came on. But that wasn't enough. The people didn't leave. "I have Christmas lights in my car," someone said, "and I have candles." They started decorating the house. Right there in front of her, hundreds of people. They hung lights on the porch, on the fence, on the old apple tree in the yard. Mrs. Abernathy sat in her armchair bundled up, holding a cup of hot broth, watching as her lonely house turned into the brightest object on the state map. That night, the house on the hill shone so brightly, it could probably be seen from space. But the most important thing wasn't the electric light. What mattered was that Mrs. Abernathy's living room was full of people. They laughed, got to know each other anew, played the piano. The lighthouse didn't go out. It simply changed fuel. Before, it ran on electricity, but now, on human warmth. Mrs. Abernathy lived for another 3 years, and not a single evening in those 3 years did she spend alone. The town learned its lesson. You can't just look at the light. Sometimes you have to climb the hill and throw wood on the fire of the one who holds that light. Christmas isn't the lights in store windows. Christmas is when we light a light for others. Look around. Maybe someone's lamp has gone out, and maybe you are the only one who can light it again. Merry Christmas, and thank you for being with us in these stories.